We acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's spirit, imagination and rich history of storytelling and humour that is an inspiration for all Australians.
Hello, welcome to another episode of The Bearer of Weird News. As always, I am your host and the suppository of all wisdom, Matt Harvey. Thanks guys for tuning in to another episode of The Bearer of Weird News. This podcast is made possible by a generous grant from the Compromise Foundation. That's right, Compromise. Looking to promote your upcoming comedy festival show, but don't really have time to write an entire episode of the kind of delightful satire and bullshittery that your audience has come to expect? Try compromising. Maybe just do half an episode. Or write more short jokes that don't need as much in-depth research. Compromise. It gets shit done. And it is with this in mind that I am here to inform you that this is a special Melbourne International Comedy Festival edition of The Bearer of Weird News. And Opps, mostly headlines edition, where I will mostly only have time during this festival to send out sort of a short collection of headlines. You'll have seen the episode length comparative to any other episode length by now. And I do apologise in advance for that. I probably should have done my research and got myself sorted out earlier, but I was doing Adelaide before doing Melbourne. It does eat up a lot of time. But I hope you can enjoy the short stories that I have collected here and the few small stories that I had already written before putting this episode together. But as thankful as we are for Compromise, this really honestly is only possible due to the generous support of loyal viewers, listeners, partakers like you, who continue to make this possible over at patreon.com/Matt Harvey Stuff. Do keep the bullshit arts independent and alive with your support. But of course, as always, as much as I appreciate the support of your patrons over at Patreon, this really only is possible and necessary because of my live shows. So, Melbourne, the comedy festival is happening right now. So come check out my brand new storytelling and stand-up show, Jokes About the Time That I Got Detained in America and Other Stories. It is a storytelling show, it is full of stand-up, and it is a really good time. Audiences that have come so far have had nothing but really lovely things to say, and I hope that you will come out and enjoy it. I'm on for the entire festival from, well, I opened on March 26th, but I'll be closing on April 19th, doing Thursdays till Mondays. So come on out, check out the show, grab tickets, it will be a good time. After this, I will have a little bit of a very short break before I go on tour again, this time through the EU. Should be very exciting with my old show, I Got Bit by a Monkey Once. I'm going to be taking that to the Brighton Fringe as part of Brighton's Other Free Fringe, which is the first time that this festival has ever ran. It's sort of like the Free Fringe Festival that accompanies Edinburgh, but over in Brighton instead. I'll be swinging through Switzerland, specifically the town of Basel in Switzerland, for one night only on May 23rd, and then I'll be heading to Prague for the Prague Fringe Festival, and I cannot tell you how excited I am for this little mini Euro trip that I've got going on. I'm pumped. If you know anybody in these places, do send them my way. If you're in Melbourne, stop going to see the big names who have mostly already sold out and come and see me, an independent comedian whose podcast you stumbled upon accidentally during the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. But until then, my friends, until then, I will be the bearer of weird news. So let's get into the headlines. A study called the Swiss 100 has identified 37 proteins in centenarians' blood whose profile appears linked to slower aging. Upon hearing the news, eccentric billionaire and man attempting to be the living embodiment of Dorian Gray, Brian Johnson, declared that he was going to buy an old folks' home in Switzerland for no particular reason, and certainly not to harvest their proteins and put them on his cereal every morning. In an attempt to relieve cost of living pressures, the Victorian and Tasmanian governments have announced public transport will be free across the states from Tuesday, March 31st until April 30th. The government went on to emphasise it would only be until April 30th and not a second longer, you understand? So don't get used to it. Don't get used to this not touching on business, you hear me? We'll be going straight back to it with double the ticket inspectors afterwards. But until then, hopefully the cost of living doesn't get too bad. As for ticket inspectors and PSOs who are on a salary of roughly $80,000 a year, they won't be doing nothing. Don't worry, we certainly won't be allowing their talents to go to waste. PSOs will be redeployed, answering Centrelink phones during the month of free public transport so that they can continue using their basic skill set of harassing students, the elderly and the poor. You know, you've got to do what you know best. A farmer in southeast Queensland is hoping to export 60,000 litres of camel milk to the US this year. And I know what you're thinking. Camels have milk? Yes, all mammals produce milk, guys. It's just camels, keep it in their humps, or at least that's what I've been led to believe. His exact words were, with RFK as the Secretary of Health and Human Services, it's open season on getting weird shit approved in the US, so let's go, baby! You know what? It's fine, I'm open to trying some camel milk. What are the selling points of camel milk, my friend?
There's Somali culture, Arab cultures, there's people using it for all the reasons we are. This is, the only mammal milk that people with dairy allergies can have.
Oh no. Buddy, what are you doing? You fucked it. You fucked it already. You talked about Arabs and vegans in the same sentence? They'll never buy your woke terrorist camel milk now, not unless you can rebrand it fast. What have you got for me?
Most people comment how much creamier it is. When you heat it, it also can enact the salts in the milk.
Whew, there it is. Now that's a rebranding that RFK Jr. can get behind. Warm, salty milk. Yeah, definitely. A man who works out in a sauna in jeans will definitely buy your warm, salty milk. Police Scotland says organised crime gangs are targeting chip shops, takeaways and restaurants for their used cooking oil. Across Scotland, 178 incidents of cooking oil thefts were reported to police between April and October last year. Seems Scotland Yard thinks something fishy is going on. However, the case has been floundering, so they're looking to cast a wider dragnet and reel in these thieves, hook, line and sinker. Officers went on to say these crimes were getting out of control and it was crunch time. And they would like to help from the public on this matter. And if anyone sees anything suspicious, well, they should simply let me know. A drug dealer has been jailed for 7 years after rigging a series of houses with Home Alone-style booby traps in order to deter intruders. In his defense, the one place Kevin McAllister didn't booby trap, that hotel that he stayed in, had the worst criminal of them all staying in it. Do we have a clip?
Excuse me, where's the lobby?
Down the hall and to the left.
When reached for comment about the cultural impact of his films, Macaulay Culkin had this to say. AusAlert, a new national mobile alert system, will begin trials this year with the aim of delivering faster emergency warnings to Australians in times of disaster. Which, given that One Nation got a 22% swing in the South Australian election, we're definitely in a time of disaster. So this could not be coming soon enough. But with all the elections coming down the line this year, I assume this alarm is just going to be constantly going off from now until we collectively blow our fucking brains out. At least then we won't have to live in a world where one nation gets 22% of the vote. So I think we've made the right choice. Almost half of the jury pool in the class action lawsuit filed in the United States District Court by investors in Twitter who alleged that Musk violated securities laws with months of public indecision over purchasing the company in order to drive down the price of shares before he completed the purchase, causing them financial harm, had to be tossed out after so many of them openly stated that they hate him. And this might be a problem going forward, as he may have found a loophole for all future prosecutions. Everybody on the planet hates this guy or owns a Tesla Cybertruck, in which case neither of these parties can be unbiased. This is a move that will forever be described as the Musk paradox. The new leader of the National Party, Matt Canavan, has called for what he calls Hyper Australia, with more Australian babies, saying we need to have more Australian everything. We need to manifest a Hyper Australia. We need more Australian humour, more Australian jokes, with more Australian barbecues. He went on to call for more hyper-Australian images like kangaroos made out of Vegemite, 700-foot tall bushrangers with coal mines in place of a heart, turning more and more islands surrounding us into prisons, koalas covered in smouldering hot fire so they can't die in a bushfire, a Prime Minister so centrist that he is actually the leader of both major political parties. Animals venomous enough to kill all New Zealanders just by looking at them. Or at least it would, if there are any New Zealanders left, because all former states and territories will be absorbed so that all New Zealanders will in fact be Australian. We're just going to maximise Australia so that we will be taking over all places where Australians are prominent, and that includes the island of Bali. So get ready, Indonesia, we're coming for you. Chris Bowen has urged an end to panic buying of jerry cans, and in order to combat the panic buying, Bowen has deployed desperate measures, unleashing the nation's stockpile of its harshest rebuke, calling the public un-Australian. Oh my god! What is this, some sort of attempt to bring about public order? How could you strike us so harshly, Bowen? I don't know what you're thinking. If only some country had spent the last 20 years making cars run on electricity instead of defunding solar research and disincentivizing buying electric vehicles as the fuel crisis continues to rise. Now the country is overcompensating because apparently hoarding fossil fuels is un-Australian, unless of course you're giving them away to foreign countries or giving tax incentives to companies to dig up indigenous sites. A true Australian gives away their natural resources with no expectation of compensation. You understand how the system works. Holding on to the dying infrastructure of oil has been a reasonable choice, as I think you'll all agree. The real story here is, where could a country drenched in sunshine and girt by sea possibly find alternative fuel sources? It just can't be done! Brunswick, however, has entered a state of panic buying bicycles in preparation for the upcoming fuel crisis, and inner city bike riders are generating more and more anger than usual. Once we figure out how to run the country entirely on bike rider smugness or the non-bike rider resentment, then we won't even have to invest in solar or hydropower for at least another 50 years. VPN downloads have spiked in Australia after the rollout of the new age verification rules. And Pornhub finally shut down the jerk-off factory in Australia, leading to a 1000% spike in Google searches for VPN now! Oh my god, why is this possibly happening to me? I only have half an hour by myself! It's official, the nation is definitely not frantically Googling free VPNs right now. The nation's collective imaginations and memories of all of their exes responded by smugly declaring, "Well, well, well, look who's come crawling back. Oh, no, you said there would be infinite porn forever. Well, well, well." To be honest, asking for government ID to access porn is a giant sub-dom relationship that we weren't asked if we consented to participate in. And you know what? That's exactly how we like it. Out of habit, the nation's youth has already found roughly 5,000 or 6,000 ways around the age verification, while older Australians are getting digitally blue-balled the country over. According to a new study, mixed breed dogs like cockapoos, labradoodles, and cavapoos are more likely to display undesirable behaviours than their purebred parents. Behaviours that have been highlighted are fear of traffic or loud noises, separation-related issues, and cultivating pretentious owners who will corner you in a room telling you all about how their dog is hypoallergenic and how, mixed dogs are just better. They have a better personality and it's like a rescue dog, we're just doing something good for everybody. You better believe I'd be angry too if my entire existence was based on the social clout of my owner. You didn't get a pet, guys. You attempted to breed a personality. According to the study, cockapoos in particular displayed more aggression and rivalry when it came to other dogs. And honestly, who could blame them? You named them cockapoos! Imagine going through life with that name. Of course it's aggressive. It's trying to earn back its dignity. It has little dog syndrome. The South Australian election has triggered a federal political crisis, with One Nation displacing the Liberals as the primary alternative to Labor and securing its most significant electoral foothold in nearly 30 years. Proving that South Australia has not changed and is still morbidly obsessed with serial killers. Case in point, Pauline Hanson recently called for Australia to help Donald Trump, quote, stamp out evil by entering the conflict with Iran. If there's one thing that Hanson cares about, it is sending your kids to die in an ideological war to prove some kind of stupid point about Muslims that she's making this election cycle. A working class hero to the end. Here we see Hanson displaying her usual level of appreciation for the working class.
Got elected last time in the South Australian Parliament, has run under a different party.
Displaying all the personal warmth of a goanna in a snowstorm. Nothing like showing appreciation for the people who helped put you in power, which is why Hanson will continue to lick the boots of her billionaire overlord, Gina Rinehart. Ewan McGregor says that he is dedicated to exploring the world as authentically as possible. And yet, he insists on doing it from the back of his vintage motorcycle and not, as most people do it, crammed into overstuffed economy seats, overcharged for tiny meals, and vomiting into their hotel toilet due to getting experimental with authentic cuisine. Apparently his mission is to encourage people to go out into the world and look at it. Now, if only all of us could have a high-paying job as a Hollywood movie star that allowed us to take months off at a time, not only to plan a giant road trip, but then actually get paid by a different TV show to go and do it. Sure, I'd love to go out and see it. You gonna take me on your next biking trip, Ewan? 90s cult classic Trainspotting, the beloved story of heroin addicts in Edinburgh navigating poverty, friendship and addiction alongside their dysfunctional peers, will be getting a lavish West End musical adaptation this summer. I'm particularly looking forward to the large Busby Berkeley-esque style dance number as a troupe of dancers dressed as suppositories dives into a pool hidden under the stage to adapt the scene that has the worst toilet in Scotland. It'll be a beautiful, beautiful scene. Maybe a musical about crippling poverty, which is charging on average $120 a ticket, will be just the shot in the arm that theatre needs to get people out of their homes and into the theatre, giving it a real lust for life. A musical number about how many cans of soup it takes to go cold turkey through heroin withdrawal might be a perfect day out for families and posh people looking to connect with the plight of the poors. Cigarette giant British American Tobacco has threatened to quit Australia over illegal tobacco wars. Australians everywhere are asking the important question, well, what are you waiting for? Go! Nobody wants you here. Apparently the company is concerned that the encroaching illegal tobacco market will mean there will be no legal market by 2030. Are you waiting for me to buy you a ticket? You can afford all your own tickets with all that money that you've been taking for poisoning Australian citizens. So I ask again, what are you waiting for? Get the fuck out of here. Finland was crowned the happiest country in the world for the 9th year in a row, followed by Iceland and Denmark, as other nations are sticking with their bold strategy of unfiltered chaos. Global leaders are urging Finland to tone down their reckless levels of emotional stability, going on to say, having a functional society with taxes used to support its citizens in appropriate ways is really more of a cheat code than anything else. Anyone can run a country where the people are emotionally stable. Let's get their government to try and run America and see how happy everybody turns out to be then. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham told NBC News' Meet the Press that there will not be American boots on the ground in Iran. And of course there won't be boots on the ground in Iran. With the price of petrol the way it is, all the boots on the ground will be on American soil, as rising petrol prices force everybody to walk to the train in order to get to work. The Prime Minister's department has requested modelling on options to impose a new levy on gas companies, as well as further changes to the petroleum resources rent tax for gas and coal to shield Australia from the impact of the war in Iran. So this is all it took to fundamentally change the landscape of Australia. A war. Interesting. Maybe we should have put a despotic dictator wannabe in power years ago. Is there anywhere else that we can blow up that will improve things here? Maybe we can go to war with Queensland in order to protect the Barrier Reef. Just throwing out options, guys. Corey Bernardi, the leader of One Nation South Australia, says that he stands by highly controversial comments that he made almost 14 years ago, linking gay marriage to the social acceptance of bestiality. And I wouldn't normally say so, but maybe he has a point. Bernardi just successfully secured a seat in the upper house 14 years after gay marriage was legalised, so it seems that at least a portion of the South Australian community is open to getting fucked by this animal. Sarah Ferguson has denied that she was going to take part in a reality TV show that could have involved cloning the late Queen's corgis. Which I think means it's official. It's not the corgis that were being cloned, but it's actually 50 clones of Queen Elizabeth. They will be competing to take back the throne in a new reality TV show called So You Think You Can Make the People Forget About Andrew. And that's the end of the headlines, guys. I know there was a lot of them, and maybe we'll do a bit more of this format as I go on tour a little bit more. We will see how that goes. But for now, we're going to move on to some of the biggest stories, starting with immigration news. New Zealand, the land of the long white cloud. The former Australian state who has shed its Aussie identity enough to respect its own native culture, but not so much that the two countries do not feel so interchangeable that Australia claims a bunch of its most famous actors, as they have taken up a long-standing New Zealand tradition, abandoning your homeland to live in Australia, which, to be fair, we need their actors, as they have yet to realise that there isn't enough market here to sustain a career, which is why so many of our actors have gone overseas to work as well. See, Our actors go to America, their actors come to Australia until they realise Australia is a deadpan, and then they go to America. And the cycle sort of continues like this, just a never-ending conveyor belt of actors moving countries, hoping that things will be better. In the year ending November 2025, almost 122,000 people immigrated to Australia. That's a 4% jump from a previous year, and higher than a previous spike in 2012. Making them about the 5th highest group migrating to the land of Oz, only to discover there is a place like home, and it's called Australia. So in the top 10, but not enough to trigger a One Nation style panic about being invaded by New Zealanders, which is the sweet spot for migration if you ask me. You don't want to get on One Nation's radar. The number of New Zealanders aged 30 to 50 immigrating has been fueled by rising living costs and a weakening job market, prompting New Zealanders to move to Australia, with some settling in Sydney, which is a logical first thought choice, followed closely by Brisbane, which is a bit of a surprise given Queensland is the home of One Nation, the anti-immigration party, but hey, maybe the sunshine is enough to overcome the attitude. I don't know. Oh, maybe they're just white. Who knows? That they would fly under the radar if they were white enough. And the surprise third place city for choice for newly arrived New Zealanders? Perth. Yeah, bet you didn't see that coming. Like, why would you move from New Zealand because there isn't enough opportunities, and then move to Perth, the most isolated city in the world, where there isn't that many job opportunities? I know you want something that feels like home, but not that much like home. So I have to assume that it's surely all about the sunshine. Like, they're just sick of the cold, harsh climate of New Zealand. And they're like, you know what, we'll deal with Queenslanders' eccentricities and Perth's isolation. If we get some sun, you're going to move countries from New Zealand. The Southern Hemisphere's Iceland, yeah, you're going to want to move somewhere warm. The most notable recent immigrant to Australia is former New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, who moved to Sydney after previously moving to the US, which is a bold choice. Australia is a good choice for someone looking to get away from the craziness of America, but doesn't quite want to go home yet. At the very least, she has brought herself, 5 to 10 years before Australia completely submits to the American culture war and transforms into a quagmire of hand-me-down chaos. And to be fair, we exported Rupert Murdoch first, so we did start this whole thing. It's only fair that they attack back. It's a retaliatory attack. For those concerned that in the future all New Zealanders will move to Australia, don't worry. Seems Peter Jackson is not going anywhere anytime soon. So I guess he's just gonna end up buying more and more of the area surrounding Wellington and eventually turn the entire country into a functioning replica of Middle Earth in order to capitalize on tourism dollars. So there will always be a taste of colonial England, sprawling landscape in the middle of Middle Earth. That's what we're concerned about, right? Preserving Middle Earth culture. Is that not what this story is about? Oh, my bad. And New Zealand attracts more and more migrants than it actually loses, with official figures showing a net gain of 13,700 in the past year. Current trends of people arriving in New Zealand include immigrants from India, the Philippines, and China. But there is another group looking to the quiet fields of New Zealand. Wealthy Americans seeking a safe haven in an unstable world. Which is a hell of a choice you've made, fellas. The whole reason that they need to run and hide in paradise is because they are destroying everything beautiful so that they can turn it into a way to make money by stealing either data or creative work from others. Creating a cycle where Americans go to New Zealand, New Zealanders come to Australia, and Australian artists and some Australians end up going to the US. It's sort of like a desperate game of musical countries where each person attempts to fill a hole in their country by abandoning it. No wonder so many New Zealanders are leaving. They were as far away from Americans as they could possibly be. and then the Americans started coming to them. Nobody wants to live with that many Americans except other Americans. And finally, it is delusion news. With 2026 well on its way, some people have taken to reviewing the past. Some people are reposting posts from 2016, a simple time where our biggest disappointments were that the year of Back to the Future had just passed and we still didn't have hoverboards. And Trump was on the horizon, but it was still a distinct possibility that he wouldn't get into power. Others are doing slightly more introspective looking at the past, including the Liberal Party, who has just released a review of the party's disastrous... No, that's not fair. Dog shit, Trump imitating, out of touch, stupidity mongering 2025 election campaign. Yeah, that's it. That feels more accurate of a description. However, the release was delayed because former opposition leader and first draft Bond villain Peter Dutton claimed elements of the report are defamatory to him and his staff. This in and of itself is a pretty extraordinary claim and one that will be hard to prove, as the claim of defamation does require you to be defamed. And Dutton ran the most dogshit awful campaign possible in the history of Australian election campaigns. Maybe ever. I would say, and I'm no expert, but I would say this is probably the worst thing that we've ever... It's a bigger pile of garbage than that Pacific garbage patch. A man who has continuously been elected, despite continuously getting in his own way. In the past, Dutton accused detainees of menace of sexually molesting local children, fabricated stories about African gangs in Melbourne, walked out on Parliament rather than witness Kevin Rudd's apology to the stolen generations, said of refugees that many, quote, won't be numerate or literate in their own language, let alone English, end quote, and that, quote, these people would be taking Australian jobs, end quote, which... Like, if they're not literate and numerate, how are they taking jobs? But I guess you didn't think that through when you were busy fear-mongering. Do you need more? Do you need more? Because there's a lot more. Okay, what else did he do? He used his position to further strip our civil rights, in particular the right to privacy in personal communications and internet use. He called News Corp journalist Samantha Maiden a mad fucking witch in a text that he then sent to her. He opposed marriage equality until the last moment. As health minister in the Abbott government, he tried to introduce a $7 GP co-payment and tried to privatise the payment services for Medicare and the pharmaceutical benefits scheme. He voted repeatedly to cut penalty rates, protect banks from investigation, and hand big businesses tens of billions of dollars in tax cuts. A man whose wife had to do a newspaper interview to attempt to explain to the nation that he was indeed not actually a monster despite his actions and monstrous demeanour. If you need numbers, then it's fine. The 2025 federal election reduced the Liberal Party to just 54 out of the 226 total seats in the House of Representatives and Senate. And apparently, during the campaign, frustrations were aired with Liberal HQ that Dutton's team was ignoring campaign leadership and trying to take the lead on direction and strategy. Are we sure that this is a man who can reasonably apply for defamation? It sounds like he's out to destroy his own reputation. The coalition didn't even want him in power. Former coalition Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull called him a thug on national television. Dutton just seems to be pissed that the report appears to accurately remember history or simply refuse to blame the Greens, the ABC, or wokeness or some sort of other imaginary bullshit. The party's secretariat had long held off on releasing the report in order to deal with the issues Dutton raised. Some even believe that he may sue the party if changes were not made, confirming that he will not be gaslit by facts nor bogged down by the trivialities of an objective shared reality. These things have never stood in his way before, be it as a cop in Queensland, as a property mogul, or as a dog-whistling politician appealing to bottom-feeding populists, deception and attacks on anyone who wasn't going to vote for his party anyway. This should really serve as a lesson to any current members of the party, be they new leaders or just the ones who are dangling, hanging on in there after getting decimated at the election. That once you've stopped being useful to them, they will shine a blistering light of truth on your open, gaping wounds and throw you to the wolves with a little splash of tasty wolf sauce. The sauce that wolves love. But they never seem to learn, do they? Drawn in by the allure of power, the ability to enrich themselves through deception, and the continued negligence of the population who put them in power in the first place. All so they can be granted the ability to personally lick the boots of the richest 1% and tell them that their shit tastes like a steak dinner served just right. I guess it's true that the leopards eating people's faces party are great friends to have until they run out of other people's faces to eat. The party has now sent the report to a legal team to ensure that it is watertight. Reportedly, one senior source told the ABC the report should have been legaled before it was sent to Dutton. And the fact that this process wasn't followed expresses every issue that this party has. And with that last piece of information, it does seem that not a whole lot has changed over at Coalition HQ, which is good to see. To be honest, we don't need the likes of them being elected again. I don't necessarily want the votes going to One Nation, but if we could take down the Liberal Party, that'd be fun. And weirdly, if they can't do simple things like make sure that they have sent potentially damaging reports to their own legal team before sending them to the person with a history of being litigious when they deserve everything that is coming their way, then they don't deserve to be a party. No wonder they're getting decimated in the more recent elections. They can't be trusted to run a party, let alone a country. They did so poorly that in internal reviews of the Liberal Party's dogshit 2025 election, which eventually got released, it said that it must never be allowed to repeat Peter Dutton's mistake of taking complete control of the campaign. Another of the 17. Did you hear that? 17! That's a lot of recommendations. Though most of them were just report writers writing, don't be so shit, don't be so shit, don't be so shit, don't be so shit, over and over and over again, like Jack Torrance in The Shining. Another of the recommendations is that the leader be accompanied during the campaign by a senior MP to provide advice and feedback from other Liberal MPs, which, given that they just got Angus Taylor in charge, seems like maybe it's a good idea. Guy can't even be trusted to sign into his own sock puppet accounts before going and praising himself for doing a shit job. So fantastic. Good move. Well done, Coalition. And that's the end of the episode, my friends. Unfortunately, no bonus story for you this week. I didn't have time to put something together. But I do hope that you enjoyed this variation of the podcast. If you prefer this type, let me know. Maybe we can make some changes in the future, but I am keen to sort of experiment with the format and maybe do a few more of these when I'm on tour. That I feel like that might be an easier way to sort of get episodes out and to keep you guys looped up and informed. So thanks for listening. Thanks for making it all the way to the end, and I'll do my best to get you a full episode sometime in the near future. Bye.